亲爱的观众朋友们，大家好！欢迎大家收看加拿大国际电视台推出的大型时政栏目《议政厅》，我是节目主持人杨毅。这一期呢，我们是一期特别的节目，因为我们请到了大家非常熟悉的加拿大前国防部长也是保守党的一个非常重量级的嘉宾 Jason Kenney 部长。那么 Jason Kenney 呢，今天是第一次来到我们的议政厅，就大家非常关心的很多问题，会给大家做出一个非常详尽的解释。首先，让我们一起来欢迎一下 Jason Kenney 部长。Hi, Honorable Jason Kenney.
So good to be here, Patrick.
Okay, nice to meet you.
你好。
And 你好。Oh, usually I speak in Mandarin first, and
Just
you
a little
speak
bit.
now first. Okay. 好，那么这样子，我们刚才已经有讲，向我们的观众朋友讲，真的是有很多的观众朋友很想知道关于保守党的一些政策，包括国家的一些政策。那么今天呢，特别难得的机会，我们请到了 Jason Kenney 部长，所以我们就大家关心的问题来请教一下。我知道我们作为华人来讲，移民来讲，大部分人都是移民过来的。那么移民过来的问题，所以说我们自然最关心的，首先就是移民问题。所以我们先从移民问题开始。I just talk about most of our people, the Chinese Canadian here speaking Mandarin, they are immigrant.
Right.
So, of course, the concern about the immigration, of course, is the first thing they think about.
Yeah.
Every party have their own policy about this part. Some people say the Conservative Party is not good at this part. What do you think?
Well, in fact, our government has welcomed the highest number of immigrants of any government in Canadian history. Since we came to power in 2006, we have increased immigration overall by 20%. We have welcomed 2.5 million new permanent residents and swore in 1.6 million new Canadian citizens. Just from China, we've seen an increase of over 20%. If you look here, you can see that we welcomed over 270,000 permanent residents from China since 2006. This compares to 222,000 under the previous Liberal government. So that's a 22% increase in immigration from China. And we've also seen a huge increase in the number of visitor visas issued to Chinese. Back in 2005, under the Liberals, only 100,000 visitor visas issued to Chinese visitors to Canada. These would include people doing tourism, business, and students.
Yep.
Last year, 360,000. So there's been a huge increase there. And as well, we've welcomed record numbers of Chinese Canadian citizens, 167,000 immigrants from China have become citizens since we took office, as compared to 150,000 under the previous Liberal government. So we've increased by over 20% the number of Chinese immigrants. We've increased by 10% the number of Chinese immigrants becoming citizens. And we've increased by almost 400% the number of Chinese visitors coming to Canada.
Wow. But still, a lot of people say the policy of the immigration is not good, especially for the latest one, the policy to change the regulation, how to get the immigration first.
It's much better than the old system. The old system required people to wait in the back of a line in a queue for 6, 7, or 8 years in the federal skilled worker program. The new system, Express Entry, has eliminated the backlogs, and now qualified new economic immigrants are getting permanent residency in Canada within months instead of years, and a higher percentage of them have jobs already established in Canada before they get here. That helps newcomers to succeed and work at their skill level rather than being underemployed in survival jobs.
Yeah, some people come here cannot find a job.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's why we reformed the system, which is to increase the number who have a prearranged employment before they get to Canada. Those people tend to make twice as much as the immigrants who arrive without a job.
Yeah, but for some people, they think it's unfair for the particular person. Do you think it is unfair for some people?
Well, Patrick, there are hundreds of millions or billions of people who would like to come to Canada.
Yeah.
And so all of those who don't qualify probably think the Canadian system is unfair.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is that we are the most generous country in the developed world with respect to immigration. And now our system is moving fast, so people don't have to wait for 7 or 8 years. And I think that's great progress. But you know, since we've come to office, we've admitted 2.6 million new permanent residents to Canada. versus 2.1 million under the previous Liberal government. This is a 20% increase. So people may call it unfair, but look, obviously for economic immigrants, we want to make sure that they have a decent education, degrees that will be recognized by Canadian employers, and that we want the primary economic immigrants to have at least some basic English or French language proficiency, because
the basic skill they have to.
It's some people who don't speak English can succeed in Canada. Many do, and the vast majority of our immigrants are not tested based on their English or French language. All the family class immigrants, the refugees and others, only about 20%, those are the primary economic immigrants. We ask that they have some basic proficiency in English or French, because that's one of the keys to integration and success in Canada. And by the way, there are tens of millions of people in China who have learned English now.
Of course.
And there's a growing number with the education system.
I learned English in China too.
There you go. Exactly. And there's a growing number of Chinese students in Canada at Canadian colleges and universities who increasingly qualify for permanent residency after they've had a chance to improve their English or French language. So let me say, China has been the #1 source of immigration to Canada under the Conservative government. We've increased Chinese immigration by 20%. We've increased the number of visitors from China by nearly 400%. So if people think this is unfair, I don't know what they think would be fair.
Looks like like you show us, you have very good record about the immigration. And how about if you win the election? Any new future good news for immigrant and good future?
The good news is that we'll finally get to, our reforms will have a full effect where new economic immigrants will be arriving within months instead of years. We also intend to expand and make permanent the loans that we are offering through nonprofit organizations to immigrants who need to pay for costs in order to get their professional credentials recognized. We have too many foreign-trained doctors and engineers, lawyers and dentists and others who are unable to get their credentials recognized.
Cannot get a professional job.
That's right, and so many of them end up being very frustrated and underemployed in Canada. We want them to work at their skill level. One of the programs we've created that Prime Minister Harper announced in this election that we will make permanent is a low-interest loans of up to $10,000 for foreign professionals who may need to take extra courses in Canada or take time off of their job in order to prepare for their certification exams, to pay for those exam fees. There are costs associated with getting your degree or diplomas recognized, and we want to help people pay for those costs by making permanent the foreign credential loan program.
So I part of understand about this is like you not only bring the people in, but also help them to get into this society and
yes, and
have
another
a better
way,
future.
Another way we've done that is through a huge increase in funding for free settlement and integration services, like free language classes. So when we came to office, the government was spending $368 million on free settlement services, but we tripled that, and now the government is spending $900 million on free settlement services. This is language instruction, job search skills, and other help. We've also opened up, our Conservative government opened free orientation sessions for Chinese economic immigrants before they leave China. So we offer 2-day free seminars and free personalized counseling for selected Chinese economic immigrants out of Beijing and out of Guangzhou. And we also do for Taiwanese out of Taipei, and Seoul for the Koreans. And so they can come in and learn how do you get a job in Canada? How do you apply for your credentials to be recognized? Where are the best employment prospects? How can you find housing? Enroll the kids in school and do all of that before you get to Canada.
They start to prepare.
Exactly. So we're making a major investment in helping selected immigrants prepare so that when they land in Canada, they have a head start.
Yeah, ready already. Yeah, that's very important because if they landed and they start to learn those things, they spend money, they spend time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they
right.
can get a good job faster and be more satisfied.
Yeah.
Too many Chinese and other immigrants come here and they feel maybe a little confused and anxious and they have difficulty finding their first job and their degrees are not recognized. They don't have Canadian experience
right,
and the kids maybe are struggling in school at first. This places a great emotional burden on the too many immigrant families. We want to give them a head start before they come here.
Yeah, exactly. It's really necessary because for the new environment, they feel a little bit scared.
Yeah.
But if they are ready, totally different.
Exactly the idea.
Okay, yeah, very good, very good. Thank you to share us all the record
sure.
and let us know the plan about
Sure.
the immigrant. 那么接下来一个问题的话，我们华人特别关心的话呢，其实也不光是华人，所有的加拿大人都特别关心的就是这个经济问题，因为经济问题呢，一直是我们这次选举的一个特别重要的话题。So next question, we are all concerned about not only the Chinese people but also the whole Canadian. They all care about is the economy. It's the key.
Right,
point.
I agree.
Yeah, the key point. So, and this part is interesting too. A lot of people say the economy is bad now. Lots of people say it's good. So it's good or bad? What do you think?
It's fragile, but growing. And we're living in very difficult times in the global economy.
Yeah.
Your viewers will remember that a month ago, the Chinese stock market crashed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And we have European governments, some of them teetering on bankruptcy.
Yeah.
We have a recession in Japan and a decline in global commodity prices, which hurts us in Canada because we export a lot of commodities. So all of this means that we must have a government that is very mature, prudent, and serious about economic policy. Now, since the big global economic downturn in 2008, Canada has had the best economic growth record of the major developed economies. We have had the best job creation records with the creation of over 1.3 million net new jobs since 2008, mainly good full-time jobs. We have balanced the federal budget 1 year ahead of schedule. We are one of the only developed countries with a balanced federal budget. We have one of the lowest levels of federal debt of any developed country. We have reduced taxes and reduced taxes 160 times as a conservative government. We have reduced taxes by $35 billion a year, or about $6,600 for an average family. We have reduced the federal tax burden to its lowest level as a share of our economy since the 1950s. According to Forbes magazine, Canada is the best country in the world in which to start a new business. According to the World Economic Forum, we have the most stable financial institutions in the world. According to the New York Times, we have the wealthiest middle class and the highest household disposable incomes in the entire world. And this is a record we should preserve, especially given the danger and uncertainty in the global economy. So our conservative plan is focused on economic growth, job creation by being pro-business, pro-entrepreneurship, low taxes. We want to keep cutting taxes. We want to keep the budget balanced so that we don't defer taxes to the future and still make key investments in things like infrastructure. Mr. Trudeau's plan is to raise taxes and run big permanent deficits. Deficits just mean we have to pay for that in our taxes plus interest in the future. His policies are the same as Kathleen Wynne, policies that have raised electricity prices in Ontario, that have destroyed manufacturing jobs. We need a pro-business, low-tax, fiscally responsible government.
But they do have the investment on the infrastructure or the construction.
Which we are doing. The Conservative government has tripled the federal money for infrastructure like transportation. We're now spending about $5 billion a year on infrastructure projects. It used to be under the previous Liberal government about $1.5 billion a year. So we're spending far more. Now, it is true, Mr. Trudeau proposes to spend more than us on everything. $140 billion of new spending commitments in this campaign. But the point is, where does that money come from? Now, I know Mr. Trudeau is personally rich. He was born as a millionaire, but he's not going to pay for it. He's going to find the money by raising taxes. That's what he has told us.
He said they just retested for the very rich people.
No, he said he's going to cancel our doubling of the tax-free savings account, which benefits 12 million Canadians. He said he's going to raise payroll taxes, like with Kathleen Wynne's unnecessary new pension tax that would be $1,000 out of the pocket of somebody earning $60,000 a year. Now, I don't think somebody earning $60,000 a year is rich. No. Mr. Trudeau also wants to raise employment insurance premiums by $600 a year. So they're between employment insurance and Canada Pension Plan, that's $1,600 a year for somebody making $60,000. He's attacked us for cutting taxes for small businesses. He wants to take away income splitting. There are many, many Chinese Canadian families that have a full-time parent at home with the young children. Under our income splitting, they can take as much as $2,000 off of their income taxes by the father reducing his tax burden if he's working outside and the mom is taking care of their kids.
The whole family, the tax is lower.
What we do is we end up taxing the family unit rather than each taxpayer. This lowers the effective tax rate. Mr. Trudeau wants to take that away. Mr. Trudeau's Liberal Party wants to impose basically a carbon tax on everything, which would drive up the cost of transportation, of groceries, of fuel, of energy. They opposed our cut in the GST. They opposed our cuts in income taxes. So the Liberal Party is very simply about higher taxes. That kills jobs. People move to Canada to pursue economic opportunity. We create opportunity by rewarding success through lower taxes. That's our policy.
Okay, now we understand the policy of conservative parties because the whole explanation about the economy. 那么我们讲起来呢，联邦大选的话呢，有一种说法是说，在联邦大选里面呢，是选党更主要一点，也就是什么意思呢？他要看这个党的价值观，而多于他对这个选区的候选人，这是一种说法了啊。我们先姑且不论这个说法对不对，但是我们来看看，那么保守党的价值观是什么 ？Some people said, for the federal election, it's very important to know the value of the party. This is much more important than the policy, than the candidate. So what do you think about the value of the party? And by the way, before we start, do you know the Chinese traditional value?
Yes, I think I do. The most important loyalty for Chinese people is to their own immediate family and then their extended relatives, their clan family. And this is one of the reasons I have such admiration for Chinese culture and Chinese people. They believe that
the multicultural department.
It's
you
true.
Know that,
that too. But in Chinese culture, people believe that you have a responsibility to take care of your family, your relatives, and that's your responsibility, not your neighbor's responsibility, and not the government's responsibility. And this is why, like for example, in Hong Kong, the strongest economy in the world with the lowest taxes in the world, because people don't expect the government to force their neighbors to pay for their benefits. They work hard to take care of their families. So family is at the heart of the Chinese culture.
Yes, exactly. And I can show you one of the Chinese word which I used in my program at the very beginning. It called 齐家治国平天下. That means first you look after your family, and then go to your country and go to the world.
Perfect. Exactly. And so I think the value of family has to be central for government as well. Now this is the conservative view. The conservative view is the family is the most important institution in society. That through strong and stable families, we have a strong and stable country. And so that's why we brought in income splitting that treats the whole family unit as such under the tax code. That benefits parents.
It's benefit the family.
Exactly, because many Chinese families, they believe so much in the responsibility of family that they have a full-time parent at home with young children or elderly relatives. They make an economic sacrifice to do that. They give up the second income very often to do that, and we believe the government should recognize that sacrifice by letting them cut their taxes if they have a parent staying at home, taking care of the domestic business of the family. That's also why we have brought in the universal child care benefit that provides up to, it provides a direct cash benefit of $1,900 for every child under 6 and $760, I think, for every child over 6. This means a Chinese family in Canada with 2 children under the age of 6 is now getting $3,800 in direct cash benefits from our government. Mr. Trudeau would take that away, and up to $2,000 in income splitting. That's $5,800 in direct benefits. So that is the importance of family, but also...
Well, don't scare me. I have 2 sons, 1, 6, 1, 9.
Oh, okay. Well, then you get about $1,600 off in benefits. So there you go. We just introduced that. You got a check probably in June.
Yes,
there you go for probably about let me think, $700 or something.
$900 or something.
900.
Yeah, in my home, my wife is the boss.
There you go. But the other values, you asked about values. I think that in the Chinese culture, there's a sense that of importance of discipline as well, and that keeping children healthy and safe, away from drugs, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And I find in the Chinese community, zero tolerance for crime and for drugs.
Yeah, zero tolerance.
And Mr. Trudeau wants to legalize marijuana. Now, what does that mean? That means there will be marijuana stores popping up all around our country, in our communities, and it means that 18 or 19-year-olds will be able to go in and legally buy marijuana and then resell it, maybe illegally, but they will resell it to teenage kids. This is going to increase availability of marijuana. Marijuana is bad for adolescent brain development. It often leads to unhealthy outcomes for young people. We don't need a prime minister or a government that is telling young people that it's okay to consume a damaging drug like marijuana. So we're against Mr. Trudeau's plan to legalize marijuana. He also wants to legalize prostitution. And the consequence of that would be the establishment of prostitution businesses, or what in English they're called brothels, in our communities. And there's a lot of, sadly, young Chinese women and girls who are exploited in that business. And we don't want, our government doesn't want to see that exploitation, which is why we brought in a new law to limit that business and protect our communities and women and girls from exploitation. And Mr. Trudeau also wants to set up illegal drug injection sites run by the government. He said he wants many of these across the country. This is where people go and inject themselves with things like heroin. We don't want the government and the taxpayer to be supporting criminal activity that leads to damaging people's lives. So on the level of values, I believe the Chinese community agrees with us, tough on crime, no to drugs, and no to prostitution.
Yeah, so a lot of Chinese people do agree with the value of the Conservative Party, because they are something very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah.
So this part I really agree with.
This is why I say Chinese values are conservative values.
Oh, good. That's good to know that. But in Chinese, the conservative is called 保守党。那么在这一点上的话呢，保守一点也好。So, OK。那么我们接下来的话呢，我们讲到了我们中华的一个传统的一个价值观，那么也讲到了保守党的价值观。那么我们自然就要讲到了一个对华的关系的问题，因为我们听我这个节目或者看我这个节目的人呢，大部分呢是来自中国，所以他们自然也关心，就相当于加拿大是他们的婆家，中国是他们的娘家，他们也关心加拿大和中国之间的关系，就是这个亲家之间的关系要好。So I talk about the people immigrate to Canada like me. It's always thinking like this way. It's like a girl married to a boy. The China is the home, the girl's mother and father, and here is her husband's mother and father. So they want them to be very friends. some people said the Conservative Party is not too friendly with China. What do you think about the relationship between these two countries?
I think it's a very good relationship. And I think we should measure or assess the Canada-China relationship based on actual achievements and not, just noise and comments. Like our government managed to get approved destination status for Chinese visitors to Canada. The previous Liberal government for 13 years was supposedly very nice to China, but they never got approved destination status. By getting approved destination status, we have seen this nearly 400% increase in the number of Chinese visitors coming to Canada. Many of those visitors are benefiting Chinese Canadian businesses. Second thing, the previous Liberal government, despite talking a lot about Canada-China relations, never got the Foreign Investment Protection and Promotion Agreement. Stephen Harper's Conservative government did. We adopted and ratified and are now implementing the Foreign Investment Protection and Promotion Agreement between Canada and China, which will help to protect Canadian investors in China, many of whom are Canadians of Chinese origin. The previous government failed to get a renminbi trading hub in Canada. Prime Minister Harper managed to secure a commitment from the PRC government to establish a renminbi trading hub in Canada. Trade between Canada and China has doubled since this government has come to office in 2006. And our Prime Minister has done 2 major bilateral visits. So on the real, whether it's a quadrupling the number of Chinese visitors coming to Canada, important legal trade agreements like the Foreign Investment Agreement, or the renminbi trading hub, or doubling trade overall. And let's not forget, we got pandas too.
They just
and
have
Prime
the
Minister
babies,
Harper promised in this election that a Conservative government would double the panda population, and we've done it even before getting reelected.
But it is. There were 2 babies.
Exactly, we doubled the panda population. We've quadrupled it. There were no pandas in Canada when we came to office.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so but you mentioned about one thing, the China and the Canada is like, there are TPP, now the TPP, Canada is a member of the TPP, China is not. For the AIIB, China is, the AIIB, the member, Canada is not. So what do you think about these 2 agreements?
I don't think, I would not expect that Canada and China will be in every, will always be in all of the same trade arrangements. The TPP was not started by Canada. It was started by New Zealand, then Australia,
some
Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and I think Vietnam. And it grew to include eventually Japan, Canada, the United States, Mexico. It's now 12 countries. But Canada didn't start this. We've never excluded China. It's an open trading bloc of market economies. Most people would say, notwithstanding the admirable strength of the Chinese economy and the huge increase in wealth, most people would say the Chinese economy is not fully a market economy because the government, the state, still plays a very large role in the Chinese planning and state ownership and so forth. So the TPP is for countries that have more market-based economies with much less government involvement, and but we can continue to trade and increase trade with China regardless. The TPP is good news for Canada. It gives us almost tariff-free access to 40% of the world's economy.
More opportunity for international trade.
Yeah, we also signed the Canada-Europe trade agreement. That doesn't include China either, but I mean, that's not relevant. Trade with China has gone up like this. We need to catch up in trade between Canada and Europe.
Separated.
Yeah, between Canada and Europe, Canada and Japan, and the Canada-Europe trade agreement, the TPP will allow us to catch up to the increases in Canada-China trade.
Okay, now I got you. Okay, 那么我们刚才有讲到了这些对华关系的问题，当然在对华关系问题当中，避免不了贸易的问题。这样子啊，因为我们时间非常的紧呢，我们在节目的最后的话呢，还是要 回到这次选举上，那么在这次选举上，我们现在保守党呢是在一个怎么样子的状态上，对这个情况有一个什么样子的展望 ？So at the end of this program, we want to come back to this election because now is the timing.
Please.
Yeah. So what do you think about the election message now? So I got some message saying now the election post now is not very good for conservative party now. Did you see
some of the polls certainly have Mr. Trudeau's Liberal Party in the lead, and that should make voters think twice. Do they really want a government whose campaign is based on raising taxes and running big deficits? That's Mr. Trudeau's platform. Raising pension tax premiums, raising unemployment insurance premiums, cutting in half the tax-free savings account, taking away income splitting for families that have a stay-at-home parent, attacking our small business tax cuts, and $140 billion of new spending, $6 billion in his fiscal plan, $6 billion of tax increases that he hasn't even specified. If the polls are right and Mr. Trudeau ends up being elected Prime Minister, our economy will be hurt, the value of our houses, of our savings, the ability of businesses to grow, all of this will be damaged through higher taxes. Let's not let Justin Trudeau do to Canada what Kathleen Wynne has done to Ontario.
Okay, but do you feel a little bit worried about these polls?
Do I look worried?
Yeah. Do you worry about this?
No.
No.
I don't get obsessed with polls. I think often when people see something in the polls, they then react. And I hope if they see Mr. Trudeau leading right now, they'll react by saying, "Hold on a second. Is this guy really prepared to be Prime Minister?" I hope in the Chinese community they will say, "Do we really want a Prime Minister that legalizes marijuana, thereby making it easier for adolescents to get marijuana? Do we really want a Liberal government that will put illegal drug injection sites in our communities? Do we really want a Liberal government legalizing prostitution and brothels in our communities? Do we really want a Liberal government repealing the tough on crime laws adopted by the Conservatives? Do we really want huge deficits and tax increases?" And I think in the Chinese community, the answer will be no. So I encourage people to go out and vote on October 19th.
Yeah, October 19th.
We have welcomed about 300,000 new Canadians of Chinese origin since we came to office. And many of them this will be the first time that they can vote.
Yep.
They've never voted in elections before because in China they're not the same kind of elections.
Yeah, it's not the same system.
So we ask people, they may not be familiar with elections in Canada, but just please go and vote. They can do so on election day on October the 19th, all day long. They get a voter card or call one of their candidates or look up online where they vote. My strong plea to the Chinese community is, you've come to this wonderful, free, prosperous, safe, peaceful, harmonious country. All we ask of you, of course, is to abide, pay your taxes, respect the laws, and vote. And vote. This is the most important way that you express your citizenship.
Yes.
And you've come to this great democracy. Take pride in it by voting for your values, voting for strong families, voting for low taxes, voting against crime. So please vote on October the 19th.
Yeah, of course. This point, I'm 100% agree with you. We need vote, especially our Chinese Canadian. It's our right. We should go for the vote on October 19th. And but also that's very important for them to understand whose policy, and that's all the information. So that's why we have this program, to let the people to understand. But also, I know there are some other good channel to fully understand each candidate, each party. I know you have WeChat.
I have WeChat, and it's Kong Ni, which
Kong, yeah, it's the Chinese Kong.
My Chinese name, Kong Ni Buzang. So we encourage people to look up my WeChat site, and the Conservative Party has a Chinese web page as well. So Google Conservative Party of Canada Chinese, and they'll get that page with a lot of this information in Chinese.
Okay, great. It's a great channel for us to for the Chinese people to understand. Thank you very much, and especially
谢谢大家。
Yeah, thank you for coming to the program and let all the people know what we have.